Today's news caps a week of mixed messages about NAFTA. First, word that Donald Trump was considering an executive order to cancel the trade deal. Then, telephone calls between the leaders of Canada, Mexico, and the United States. And then reassurance from Prime Minister Trudeau that NAFTA isn't over yet.
NAFTA has been improved a dozen times over the past 20 years, and we're happy to sit down and talk about how it can be improved now, how we can create better opportunities for our citizens, greater economic growth for our countries, and continue to amplify the impact and the strength of the North American economy.
Trudeau has been ramping up his rhetoric on the importance of free trade following Trump's decision to impose new tariffs up to 24% on Canadian softwood lumber sold to the U.S. Is Canada about to embark on a trade war? Earlier on CBC News Network, I put that question to our weekend business panel.
This has been going on since 1980, the early 80s and 1984, the softwood lumber issue. But the U.S. has always been protectionist. And if you go back the last 200 years, they've always been protectionist in different areas. But eventually they have to come around. These are temporary measures. They will get through this, much like we will get through it. But the important lesson for Canada is we need to have other partners. We need to have other industries. Softwood lumber represents 7% of the Canadian GDP in one form or another. It represents 250,000 jobs. So right now is a very important component of what we sell to the U.S. 70% of the stuff goes into the U.S. At the end of the day, the U.S. consumers and the U.S. home builders will back down from this point, but it actually increases and cuts into their profit margin at the moment. So currently, these guys are going to be saying, you know what, we don't want this softwood lumber from Canada, but in the next little while, they will.
Okay, so you don't think there's going to be a war? You think it's going to end up the same way that it's always ended up?
It's always
on Canada's side.
It's always been. I think it's been a mixed result at all times. With softwood lumber, salmon, and pharmaceuticals, and all these issues and car parts. It all becomes a trade, give and take. And some people win, some people lose. And at one point, I think that's why NAFTA. I'd rather reopen up NAFTA than negotiate on a piecemeal by piecemeal basis. Because once you open up NAFTA, you can say, you know what, you can win here, I can win here, and we can all collectively win together. And that's a conversation we need to have.
Okay, so you don't think a war is coming?
No.
Do you think we're on the verge of a war, Michael?
No, I think this is just par for the course. This is kind of normal. First off, every country protects something. There is no free trade. I mean, we protect our banks, our telcos. There's a lot of things we protect as well. We're not always in the right. So if you look at the United States, think of it as a big pizza where the crust is kind of the Democrats, and in the middle of that pizza where the cheese and pepperoni is, that's all red, and Trump will show you his red map. Now, he's got to feed that base, and he's got to do things that he said he's going to do. He's got to build a wall. He's got to fight the worst trade deals he's ever seen because he's got to run for re-election in a couple of years. So he's got to do something about these trade things that are hurting the American workers. Now, they're not really, because America trades, we're #1 trading partner for like 30 of their states. And these so-called flyover states, which are all kind of run Republican right now, and America has never had such Republican control since the 1920s. This doesn't really come from the president. This will all come down to Congress and how we trade. So let's say we open up the free trade agreement. Maybe we can get a lot of advantage there by not having a border tax and what have you. I think he's just kicking it off this way, and Trump tends to negotiate like this. He fires you first on the show, and then he tries to get you to come to the table and beg for your job back. And I think it's a technique he's using, and I think Canada is keeping things calm, but we can make some great advantages and movement here.